Hello, hello. This is Hollis, host of the Open That Door podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. Hey, I want to say if you are enjoying this podcast or if this is your first time and you like or love what you hear, I would love for you to pop down into Apple Podcasts or the platform you're listening to this on, and leave a review and or rate this podcast. Together we can make sure that this information, these conversations are reaching people who need to hear them. So thank you so much. Today I want to talk a little bit about inadequacy and how that is such a driving force in us, especially us women who were raised to tone it down, to not take up our space, to not be a threat, to not look boastful, to not brag, to not be in our fabulousness and our awesomeness and our wholeness, because we didn't want to be a threat to somebody, or we didn't want to outshine somebody else. I know for me, it was always toning it down, holding back, holding my tongue, shrinking, keeping myself small and non-threatening. And it was a learned coping mechanism that I suspect I'm not alone in establishing over time. And we learn to whittle ourselves down and lean into what we perceive as our inadequacies, as my friend Diane Altamar said in my podcast last week, our not enoughness. And yet, where did we get that idea? When you think about it, you're not enough? For whom? In what regard? In what aspect? Where did our perceptions of our inadequacies come from? And are they based in anything of substance? Are they true? Byron Katie has a great process called the work, and it's a 4-step process that invites us to challenge our beliefs. And I would say, let's start with our idea that we're inadequate in one or many or all areas of our lives. And the process is really, you ask if it's true. Is that true? And then you ask again, can I know for sure that that is true? The third step is, how do I feel, or how does that leave me feeling by believing that that is true? And then the fourth step is, and I'm paraphrasing that third step, the fourth step is, who could I be without that belief that I'm not enough, that I'm inadequate? So I just want to invite all of us women today, and our feminine leading men and beyond, whoever is in touch with their more magical, feminine, creative, sensitive, emotional, heart-led side of themselves, to lean into the idea that someone, and this isn't about pointing fingers because it's societal and species driven at this point, but we were introduced to the idea that we're not enough, that we're inadequate. And then we are told that enough that we start leaning into that as truth, and we start looking around for proof. And we basically then spend the rest of our lives confirming our belief that we are inadequate, that we're not enough, that we don't measure up, that there's something wrong with us, that we need to be fixed, that we're broken, that we're less than, that we're unworthy, that we don't bring value, that we don't really matter, that we're not allowed to take up our space and use our voice. And the truth is, we're these divine beings that came from nothingness into this more than enoughness that we are. And we're here on divine assignment. And I'm not suggesting that we all believe in God or some divine quote unquote force, but there's a life force that we can't deny that brought us here. And sometimes we call that life force God or the universe. Sometimes we call it infinite wisdom or universal intelligence. Whatever it resounds inside you as, maybe there's no outside force in your perception, but it's just the energy within you. But all of that is flawless, totally enough, totally adequate. And you are filled with that. We are the containers for our essence, for our divinity, for our energy, for our purpose. And we do know what that is deep down. We've just been taught to deny our truth, to deflect, to look for fault rather than power. And we have the opportunity to start questioning the belief that we are inadequate, that we are inadequate. And we can do that by asking, is it true? Can I know for sure that that is true? How does that leave me feeling? How do I experience life with this belief in front of me? And who would I be if I was able to turn away from that belief and start finding proof in the opposite, or in a foundational principle that we are enough? Because we are enough. And women, you are enough. We are enough. So this week, I invite you to claim that, to be gentle with the parts of ourselves that focus on our sense of inadequacy, and for the environment that we have co-created in a way to help confirm that we're inadequate. And start shifting your focus to, what if I am adequate? What if I am exactly how and who I am supposed to be, who I need to be, how I need to be in this world? What if I give myself a break and let myself off the hook and start looking for proof that I am enough. I am more than adequate. And see what openings you might find. Start collecting proof. Grab a journal and just keep something at your bedside or in your bag or on your desk, something nearby where you can jot down proof that you are enough. Because really, it's just a retraining of our brain. And our brains are our servants. Our hearts are our bosses. And when you start training your brain to look for proof that you are enough, that you are worthy, that you are beautiful, that you are powerful, that you are needed and necessary, and that you count, you have value, and you are perfectly adequate and more than enough to deliver your message, to live on purpose, to serve your divine assignment while you're here. That's the win, and that's what we want to start showing up as in the world, and celebrating others when they are standing in that truth as well. So let's be women who celebrate a woman who's shining from the inside out, who's claiming her worth and her glory and her truth and using her voice and taking up her space. Let's celebrate that. And if we have a shrinking away from that or a judgment toward it, just use that as an indication. Oh, I'm untraining that part of myself that tells me that's not okay, that's breaking, that's taboo, that's breaking a rule, that's somebody taking up more space than they deserve. That's actually somebody taking up her space, and you also get to take up that space. And imagine a world where all women fill their space with their immense power and glory and beauty and compassion and deep, deep intelligence. When we stop diminishing our light and instead become the light workers that we're here to be, en masse. Imagine the world. And I'm speaking to women, and again to all people who identify with something more than a brain-driven, data-driven, structured, ordered world where everyone is supposed to fit into one way of doing things, one way of being. It's time to break that open, to live outside that paradigm, to start seeking proof that the world does work, that we are enough, that there's hope and light and love and promise and prosperity, an opportunity for all of us to live on purpose and be fulfilled and live in community and be safe and have security and own our happiness, however that looks for us. Because remember, we get to create our lives. We don't have to fit inside some preconceived way of doing life. We get to make it up as we go along. And that's where your true joy and light and fulfillment comes into play, because it's playing then. Let's swap out the overwhelm and the overwork and the grueling and the frustration and the exhaustion of trying to meet all these needs outside of ourselves, and let's flip the switch on that. If we're adequate enough, let's build our world around our adequacy, our enoughness, and trust that that is enough. We can let our kids off the hook, our partners off the hook, our sisters, our fellow women off the hook. And that trickle-down effect will have immense repercussions in moving the world in the direction that I know we all want it to go in. It's time. I believe in you. I see your light. I see your worthiness. I see your fabulousness. And I see that you are not too big, too much. In fact, you're just right, just the way you are. So shine on, my sister, and carry that light throughout the world this week, and keep finding proof that you are enough. And let that inadequate voice in you take a nap this week.